I finally got Fulgrim, and I am so excited. I have wanted this model since I very first started painting. This was one of the very first models I saw at our local game store, and I fell in love with it immediately, but I was working on the diorama piece and trying to just like dip my toes in a little bit, so I didn't get him. But finally, our Warhammer store opened back up, and my husband took me and bought him for me, so why don't we start painting him? Okay, it's finally time to open it and get started. So we're gonna start by getting all the pieces off the sprue, cleaning up any of our mold lines and stress marks, and then using our own homemade sprue goo to put everything together. We primed him with our regular Vallejo primers, and then we're ready to start on our base coats. Now we're gonna be using the airbrush a lot in this video. It is one of the best tools for blending everything and making just really smooth transitions. So we're gonna lean really heavily into it this time. We're gonna start off with AK's King Purple for our base coat. These paints are really nice because they're already pretty thin, so they only require a few drops of thinner to get them going through the airbrush really good. So next I'm gonna pull out our Army Painter Air line, and we're gonna use Broodmother Purple. This is gonna go on all the outside edges and serve as our first transition layer as we work up to the pink that you'll see later. Next, we're gonna use Alien Purple. This is gonna blend into the previous layer and build up across the belly and up about halfway up the wings. Next, we're gonna use Deep Azure. This is gonna go on about the top third of the wings and then on all the parts closest to the spines on the miniature. Now, on all of our wing parts, we're gonna wanna make sure that we're spraying from an upward angle so that we catch all of those ridges with these colors, but don't get the undersides so that we still have all that shadow and all that contrast between the colors. Then I'm gonna move back to Alien Purple and blend that Deep Azure and our purple colors back together a little bit so that it's a little bit smoother transition. So now we're gonna start on his white hair, which actually begins with a gray base coat. We're gonna start with uniform gray for all of our shadow colors, and then we're gonna move into Cadre gray and then follow that up with pure white for our final highlight. For the cape, I'm starting with Ancient Stone for the base color on the inside, followed by 50/50 Ancient Stone and Ivory, and then pure Ivory. For the red part of the cape, I begin with Basilisk Red mixed with a little bit of black to start as our base color. Then I work up to a pure Basilisk Red using a mix of layering and wet blending to bring out all of the highlights and leave the shadows. Now I'm starting on one of my favorite parts, the skin. With our dark base purple already placed, I'm going to move to Pro Acryl's Purple for our first layer, making sure that I take this color all the way to the top of the muscle groups so that I don't get lonely little muscle islands. Then I work in smaller and smaller areas, adding Pro Acryl Plum until I reach Pure Plum, and then again till I reach Faded Plum and then Pink, always going to the top of the muscle group with each pass of color. I use the exact same colors and technique for all of the fins as well. So here, I'm just masking off the entire model with AK's plastic putty because I'm really not a fan of the way the belly has turned out up to this point. So I'm gonna go in with a bright purplish pink color and just put that all over the model. Now, I did not record a lot of this. My camera died and then I got lazy and I was just like, I'm gonna paint because that's all I wanna do right now. So what I wound up doing is I used all of the same colors that I was using before, but I just took them and faded them out and around, made really beautiful, nice transitions, and then made sure when I used the lighter colors, I hit it from an angle, an upward angle, so that we could catch those nice raised areas and have it be a lot smoother than what it was when I painted it. And then I redid the fins because, like I said earlier, you want to make sure that your colors go all the way up to the top of the muscle groups and spread properly, and I didn't do that. I kind of wound up with bright lines, and so I went back with all of my transition colors and kind of spread them out a little bit more so that they looked more like skin folds instead of just little lines of color. So now we get to move into the scales, and I started off with Hydra Turquoise, followed by blending in Marine Mist for the highlights on them. Now I chose these colors because I liked the way that they contrasted with the purple really well. I felt like it brought a lot of attention to those details while also bringing the miniature together, and I just really liked the way it worked. Kind of similar to the way I decided to go with a more purple skin tone rather than the pink box art skin tone. Sometimes you just have to take a few creative liberties to really have fun with what you're doing. So in hindsight, I really probably should have chose something much less intricate than what I did to, kind of start on my gold non-metallic metal journey. I spent like a week just trying different things, watching different tutorials, trying to follow many different people, trying to get this gold non-metallic metal on the armor to work out. And I couldn't get it to work no matter what I did. Like I said, it was like a week's worth of painting that I did, and it just flopped every single time. So I decided to go with true metallic metals for the armor and save the non-metallic metal for the weapons. So here we go. I start with Balthazar Gold for the base color to give us really good shadow gold colors. Next, we use Rich Gold with a dry brush. I'm going to use this pretty heavily to catch all of the raised edges and the rounded areas. Next, we're going to go in with Bright Gold in a similar way, but less heavy, and then White Gold to catch just the edges and the middle parts of the rounded areas. We're going to use the same colors, but a little more precisely for the rest of the gold armor and trim. Next, I take a heavily diluted purple speed paint and use it as a filter for parts of the armor. Then I finish it all up with shining silver edge highlights, and the armor is done. Dips. Dippies! Come here. Oh, gosh. You want to be on the camera? You want to say hi? Oof. So now we get to start on all of the flayed bits, which I'm really excited about. I really enjoy painting skin and muscle and stuff like that. It is a really nice challenge, and it's a really nice change of pace from a lot of other things. I'm going to begin with a base of Pro Acryl's Dark Flesh for all of the shadows. Next, I work in layers with Shadow Flesh and up to Tan Flesh to build up highlights and make it really look like muscle and skin that has been peeled back. Then I take Army Painter's True Blood effect and dilute it slightly and add it to the entire area to make it look wet and fresh. And now I'm just going to take all of my gold colors and hit all of those jewelry pieces that we missed previously. So now I'm going to start on the gems. I used various different shades of greens and turquoises to get this kind of lit from within effect on the gems. You've got to make sure that you have plenty of contrast within the gem, really bright brights and really dark darks, and make sure that there's not a super large amount of blending between the two, because then it just doesn't look right. A lot of your crystals and gems have a sharp line in between where there is the shadow and where there is the highlight in them. So you got to make sure that you follow that rule, and you also follow the shape of whatever you're painting. For the wing, I started off with a pure white base coat. Then I diluted purple and turquoise colors until they worked almost like watercolors, and placed them on top of the white and allowed them to run into each other so that they would blend together beautifully. This gave a really beautiful watercolor effect where you could still see the white underneath, but you had this kind of filter on top of these other colors. Now it's time to mix a little bit of black and deep azure and sketch some of the volumes on the rest of the armor. Then we just build up closer to a pure deep azure, picking out all of the edges and the high points on the rounded planes, and we're ready to move on to the weapons. And now we're going to take another crack at non-metallic metal. This time we're going to be using much simpler shapes and silver, which is a little bit easier for me to do. This actually uses different shades of blacks, grays, and ivory. So I'm just going to let you watch a montage of what happens, and I'll see you on the other side. Here I'm just going back over the highest points with the tan flesh and really trying to bring out the muscle fibers. Then it's final assembly and we move to the base where Brian comes in.
For our base, we wanted to make a cave base. We wanted it to be somewhat large, but we wanted it to be small enough that we could use the mini in the game. So our solution for that was to make it 2 pieces. A larger base that would kind of act as our display piece, and then the base with the miniature on it would sit on the inside of that. To do that, we're going to use a combination of XPS foam, Sculptamold, plaster, milliput, silicone, and 3D printing. To start, we're going to draw the shape of our bases onto some XPS foam, and we're going to cut out 2 discs, and then we're going to use those for our bases. There was a chunk of this that I managed not to record, so I'll try to walk you through what I did. For the smaller base that Fulgrim's going to be attached to, what I did was I took the base, and instead of it being a disc, like I cut it, I took the edges and I kind of cut those at angles, so it's more like a pyramid and less like a disc. After that, I took some silicone, and I made silicone molds of some rocks from our backyard, and then molded those with plaster. And then I also took some of that same plaster and I just used the aluminum foil plaster trick where I poured plaster into the aluminum foil and then used a hammer to break those apart to make some more rock chunks. After that, I just took our now slanted base and I covered it in Sculptamold, and then I kind of glued everything, the rock pieces and stuff, to that to make this. We used a lot of STL files from Epic Basing. I wanted to have a lot of variation for the crystals, and I was tempted to use all of them, but I wound up not, so I wouldn't overcrowd the base. So to make Fulgrim actually fit on the base and to make sure that he fit correctly, and to adhere a lot of the 3D printed pieces onto the base and to kind of blend those into it, I had to sculpt a lot of pieces out of milliput. There's a whole lot of sculpting here, so let's buckle in for another montage.
So now it's time to paint the base. I did a little bit of the airbrushing off camera. So we started with a black base coat, and then I came in with a couple of different shades of dark brown. Now, what you're about to see looks like doo-doo, I know, but it's a trust the process kind of thing. We just gotta keep going and then it just kind of comes together. So let's take a look. So as you can see, we're going in with a lot of dry brush work on this base. We're using lots of different browns and khakis and tans and sand colors to achieve all of this dirt and stone kind of texture and color. Now, one of my very favorite things about the way he did this base is that he made it in 2 parts. So this model can actually still be used in gameplay because we made a separate display base that you can put on your shelves or on your counter or wherever you want to display the model, while also being able to pick it up and take it with you to competitions or to your local game store or wherever you like to play Warhammer. Also, I forgot to record painting the crystals.
Actually, more accurately, she remembered to paint them, but she didn't like the way that she did it and wound up having to redo it, I don't know, 4 or 5 times. So eventually she got fed up and just stopped recording. So instead, here's some footage of her trying to paint it.
So yeah, I mostly just did those the same way I did all of the other gems and everything. Start with a brighter color down at the base and worked up into a dark color and then followed up with really bright edge highlights. I also took the airbrush and airbrushed in nice glowing areas so that the crystals would look like they were glowing, and in turn took that same airbrush color and put it up against the model where the model is meeting up next to the crystals so that the glow would cast off of the model as well. So now it is all finished and I'm super excited to show you guys the grand reveal. So cue that epic music, let's go! So here he is in all of his glory. I am super stoked with the way this model turned out. He is absolutely one of my favorite models to date. But it's really a toss-up between him and Logan Grimnar. I can't decide which one I like more, but I had an absolute blast doing this project. As you can see, I'll show you real quick. He just comes right off of his base, and then he is playable, which is another really, really cool feature. So as always, we want to thank you guys so much for supporting the channel, no matter what way you support, whether it's just liking and subscribing or following us on our other social medias, buying from our Etsy or our Squarespace page, or being Patreons. We appreciate you so much, especially right now. Brian is currently between jobs right now, so all of your guys' support is really helping our family, and we appreciate it immensely, and we could never say thank you enough. So thank you. Now, with all of that said, don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, share our videos. Come join us over on Instagram and TikTok. We have a Facebook page too. We have a ton of new stuff on our Squarespace website for sale, and Fulgrim will also be for sale on our Squarespace website as well if you're interested in purchasing him. As always, thank you so much. All of our links are going to be down below, and you guys freaking rock. So until next time, see ya.